Today we're going to make something I love to use in just about every recipe that calls for butter. But the magic of this is that with a simple thing that we do today to turn it into ghee, it makes it indefinitely shelf stable. So we're going to do a simple process of taking regular unsalted butter, turning it into what's called liquid gold, which is just ghee, G-H-E-E. It's from India, and once we remove the water from this and the milk solids out of the butter, it turns into a wonderful shelf-stable, extra rich tasting buttery ghee, and we're able to use it in just pretty much any recipe because it's got a high smoke point and everything. So let's go ahead and get started. You're not going to need too many ingredients. This is the only actual ingredient you'll need, but you'll also want a good wooden spoon. You'll want some cheesecloth that, like I've got here. And let me just read the back of this. I want to tell you this is ultra fine gourmet cheesecloth, and it says it's long considered a staple in the kitchen for professional chefs. So you're going to see us use this a lot in a whole bunch of different recipes. So you might want to just go ahead and prepare yourself now by getting a little stash of this the next time you're at a Whole Foods store or an Amish market, or whenever you see it. It's not very expensive, and most of the time it's made in China. So I apologize that there's no homemade, easy, quick way to make cheesecloth. If you know a way, you just write in and tell us the rest of us, and we'll be able to make that on a different video. But you'll just want some of this. You'll want a good strainer that will put the cheesecloth in, and a little bowl to catch the liquid ghee when we have it all nice and ready to go. And then we'll want some containers like I've got over here, where we've just got several little sealable glass containers that will make this ready to go on the shelf for a good long while. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is turn our stove to medium heat and get us a good saucepan to put on it. I'm using one of my grandma's Revereware pans, which I think are some of the best you can get, unless you have a wonderful cast iron pan to use. But really you want a saucepan that can handle good heat, and the Revereware just have a wonderful way of spreading that heat correctly. Also, you don't want anything that's like a non-stick coated pan when you're doing this. All right, I'm going to take my butter and I'm going to just literally take it out and put all 4 squares of it into the pan. How easy is that? Like anyone can do this. All right, and I'm using unsalted butter. You see that, I hope. Make sure you get the best butter that you enjoy, and you'll want unsalted. I use a wooden spoon to stir it. I wouldn't recommend a plastic spoon, but you won't hear me recommend a plastic anything. I don't use a plastic spoon or a plastic container to even store anything. So we've got 4 of them in here. Some people like to cut them all up, and you probably could if you wanted it to go quicker, but I'll bet it'll melt just as fast the way that I'm doing it right now. So we're going to give this a few minutes, and you'll get to see it here melted down in just a moment. This will take about 2 or 3 minutes to get all nice and golden and melted down to liquid. All right, as you can see, it has already melted down, and it's going to have this interesting little phenomenon you might hear as we go. What's happening right now is that settling slowly to the bottom are all the milk solids, and as soon as this starts to have a little bit of evaporation going on, it's the water that's evaporating. But you'll hear these little tiny geysers here and there come and go throughout the next 16 minutes as this goes through its process of kind of separating the milk solids from the rest of it. You can stir it every now and then with a wooden spoon like this, and right now I stir it at the beginning of this, but over time, as I notice the milk solids kind of settling to the bottom, I'm not going to scrape the bottom, because you're going to notice very quickly that this is going to get clearer and clearer, and bubbles will rise to the top, but in the bottom we're going to see some little golden bubbles that kind of settle and actually attach to the bottom of the pan, and that's exactly what we want. So you don't want to scrape those off and stir them back into the liquid. You just want to let them settle to the bottom. So this is the process we're going to see, and I'm going to actually set the timer for 8 minutes now and just let it do its thing, stirring it just periodically. And then I usually set it for a second 8 minutes because it's got to come to a bubble on top where it has a little film of bubbles settling on top of it, and then those kind of clear off and go away and it settles quietly, and then it starts bubbling again. It's a very odd little process, and it'll take about 16 minutes. So we'll revisit this here in just a minute, but you can see how it's already starting. All right, it's been going now for about 8 minutes, and as you can see, it's got the very first layer of kind of a frothy foam that kind of settles to the top. Sometimes it's more frothy than others, so don't worry if yours looks slightly different than this, but you're going to let it come to this point that you're going to see here, and then it's going to settle and kind of clarify, and then it's going to boil up again and make kind of a little bit of a frothy, bubbly top on it. But we've got the first one going here, which is great. The milk solids are going to the bottom just like we want to see, and we're going to set the timer for somewhere close to 6 to 8 more minutes before we're ready to call this good and done. Second 8 minutes is about up now, and the bubbles have come to the top a second time. It's reduced in volume, I would say maybe a fourth. So it's a little bit less volume here in the pan now, and it's getting much thinner. You can kind of see through it like a liquid that is not as cloudy as it was. And I'm not stirring to the bottom now. Like I said, we're keeping it right in that medium heat range, somewhere between 4 and 6 on my stove. And everybody's stove differs just a little bit. So even though our second 8 minutes is up, we're actually giving it just another minute or two. We don't want it to get too burned. That would be bad. But right now it smells really nutty and just like a strong, yummy, kind of movie butter popcorny smell, which is wonderful, and that's just what you want. If the wonderful yellow color that we see here starts turning to a brown, we've ruined it. It's too late. So don't let that happen. You just want to keep it nice and gold, but watch it really close and don't stir to the bottom right now here, just for the last couple of minutes while we let those milk solids settle to the bottom and kind of attach to the bottom of the pan, and then we'll be ready to strain it. All right, you can see it's done, and as I pour this, you'll be able to see better the golden little nuggets that have kind of attached to the bottom there in the corner. We've got a few floaty milk solids that are in there, and that's just fine. You can see it's much more clear liquid that's going on, and I'm just going to quickly set this spoon aside, and I've already prepared this muslin cheesecloth in the strainer here, and I'm going to just carefully pour it. Well, first I'll turn the stove off, but I'm going to carefully pour it through this, and you just go carefully with me, and we will see if we can keep from burning ourselves. Beautiful, beautiful, clear gold liquid. And you can see the milk solids all gathering there in the bottom of the pan. That's just what we want to see. Isn't that beautiful? That is some perfect ghee. The cheesecloth catches every bit of the last milk solids that we don't want in the rest of it. Look at the bottom of that pan. Any variation of this is what you do want to see. Just make sure you don't scrape that in with it. Some folks have said they had a grandmother or someone who made special little desserts with what you see in the bottom of this, where they scrape that out and make almost like a little caramel, yummy nugget to eat. We're not going to do that with this, but that's what it should look like. And you see also in the bottom of my strainer there, some of the little bit that it caught. And here, look in that beautiful bowl of clear strained ghee, exactly how it should be. You ready to go? Here we are. Just going to pour it carefully into each one. There's one. And the neat thing about these is that they should be able to sit on a shelf. I will probably keep mine in the refrigerator, but if you keep it on a shelf, you'll notice that it just stays soft continually, and will have a wonderful extra rich butter flavor. So that was about the simplest recipe you can possibly make. And I'm going to let them just set up a little while. They're very hot right now. So before I close them up and seal them for the pantry, I'm going to just let them sit on the counter until they come down to about room temperature. I'll go ahead and seal them at that point. I'll tuck a couple of them away in the pantry, and if my grandchildren one day need butter, I will have it ready for them, unless I want to have something yummy to eat before then, and I might go ahead and just use them. This one will be just for me right now in the next day or two, and it was that simple to make ghee. I strongly encourage you, give it a shot. If you ruin one batch, it's not a great loss. It's so much more expensive to buy it in the store than it is for you to make it. Even if you ruin a batch and make it a second time, it will be worth it and even save you money in that event than going and trying to buy it at the store. But give it a shot. Let me know how you like it. If you don't fall in love, I'll be surprised. This is wonderful deliciousness that has a reason that it is called liquid gold. I totally am in agreement now that I've tasted it. So go make some ghee and let me know how you like it and how yours turns out.